Hello, Galaxy! I'm Chris Perillo for another Star Wars Radar video streaming live onto YouTube. Thank you for following. Thank you for turning on notifications. Thank you for interacting. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for fanning out with me. We are a few days away. We are well within a week of seeing The Last Jedi. Some people have already. I have not. That will be happening in approximately 3 or 4 days-ish. I still intend on recording video, in fact, probably more Star Wars video than you can shake a stick at, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend you do, because shaking a stick at video makes you look kind of weird. I am going to answer a question posed to me by someone in the community. Why doesn't Darth Vader sense Leia is his daughter? And I thought this is an interesting thought, and I'm not sure if I ever really gave it a second thought. Certainly not the first time that I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater as a kid. It was interesting. Now, in hindsight, it seems kind of peculiar that Vader may not have detected, sensed that Leia was his daughter. So I've got 3 points that may explain it. Whether or not it has been explained, these are just my thoughts, my perspectives. I'm not saying I'm right, not saying I'm wrong. This is just kind of where I'm sitting. It's a good question to ask. I like questions like these, so please continue to ask. The Star Wars related questions, at least. The first point I had was perhaps he was so focused on Luke that the feeling was overshadowed. So Luke is obviously the focus of his ire. We learned that, at least in the comics, Vader had discovered, or when Vader had discovered that Luke was his son. And that's what he was fixated on, his son. So perhaps Vader was so, concentrating on Luke, right? He had his blinders on. That's all he could see. So if Leia's presence in the Force was present, it may have been completely outside of his view. I mean, whether you say that it was a physical view or more of a spiritual type of view, it was outside of where Vader was specifically looking, or what he was looking for, what he was looking at. And so I think that's a cogent reason as to why Vader could not detect Leia. She was outside his scope. He was all about Luke. Luke. Luke is who he was going after. The second point I was going to make, or a possibility here, as to why Vader did not sense Leia as his daughter. Leia's Force sensitivity is perhaps not as strong as Luke's. There's no telling. We, to my knowledge, never really discovered this, at least in canon. They may be twins, but they're not, what is it, symmetrical, what's the word I'm looking at? Identical twins. They're not identical twins. So it's a possibility that Luke has more of the Force in him, or is able to channel more of the Force through him than Leia. So perhaps Leia's presence in the Force is not as strong. And this, of course, would also potentially explain why Vader was only seeing Luke. If Luke was the one that was in his sights, that's the thing he was concentrating on. His hatred, his ire, his direction, to be able to pull Luke to the dark side of the Force with him. So Leia was outside his scope, and then on top of that, her sensitivity in the Force may not be as strong. Maybe she didn't have as many midi-chlorians, to bring up that word. The third the reason that I could think of as to why Vader did not sense Leia as his daughter was that, this is, again, distinct possibility. I'm sure people are going to agree and disagree on all these points. That's the great thing about having these kinds of conversations, though. Leia doesn't know about herself, at least overtly. You might remember that Luke's feelings betrayed him. It was Luke who betrayed himself. And ultimately, Luke's feelings, in trying to hide it, and tried to hide those feelings, Vader got through. So Vader pursued. And so when there was ignorance, it's bliss. No one knew, right? Up until the point where Yoda basically put a finer point on it in his, would you call it a death? Really? His reabsorption into the Force. Luminant beings, are we? Was that right? I should go back and listen to that quote again. Luminous beings, are we? I think that's what it was. It's been a while. But Luke kind of had that feeling right? I don't know when he got that feeling. Maybe when he kissed Leia, possibly. But he had that feeling. But then when Yoda basically put a finer point on it, and then of course his subsequent conversation with Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan, he's starting to be, he's connecting dots. And when he's connecting dots, and then he basically knows where the cards lie, he can see the cards. In Luke's mind, he can see the cards. So when Vader gets into Luke's mind, Vader can see the cards that are laid out. When there was ignorance, it was possible that Vader was just as ignorant. He didn't know. But then once Luke knew, and then Vader could see into Luke's mind, bam, that's it. All was revealed. So it wasn't Leia who ultimately betrayed, if you can use that word, herself as Vader's daughter, or Anakin's daughter. It was more Luke's, would you say? Yeah, he was responsible. It was more of Luke's position, his feelings that ultimately made it happen. But certainly, at each one of these points, we could dive a little deeper and go down the rabbit hole with every one of them. But those are just my top thoughts. Perhaps Vader was so focused on Luke, he was feeling, or that his feeling was overshadowed. At least his feeling about Leia, because he didn't have a feeling. Leia's Force sensitivity is perhaps not as strong as Luke's, and then Leia does not know about it herself overtly. Luke's feelings ultimately betrayed him, or him and her in that connection. So ignorance was bliss, and I think that's probably the best point to put on this, as I'm now prone to do with these videos. Can I make video a plural of videos? I think I just did. I'm going to show off a few Star Wars things that I have today, including this Tervis mug tumbler, not mug. It handles both hot and cold beverages. It's plastic, and $5. It was $5. Normally it's like 20, but this was a gift from Pez Liz. I am your father, and it's got tea inside. Not my favorite tea. I'm out of my favorite tea. I like the savory stuff. And then a little bonus. I got this AT-AT driver. And it is the one that's labeled AT-AT driver for $10 on Amazon. I don't know if you follow Star Wars Radar on Twitter. You probably do if you're watching this video. But we post deals all the time. And Amazon had both the AT-AT driver. And yes, I already have one, but I love the AT-AT driver. Like, it's the figure, or the chase that I'll always hunt down, because he was my first Star Wars figure. Well, not this one, obviously, but the classic Kenner AT-AT driver. But anyway, I now have this. It's now open, and I got it for half off. They also had the Snow Trooper available, too, for $10, and I got that as well, although it has not actually arrived. So I'm going to keep my AT-AT driver there. I'm going to keep you out there. Continue to ask questions. We'll dive a little deeper into those topics that you care to dive deeper into. There will be a lot more on the horizon with the release of The Last Jedi. I probably have a good 50 to 100 topics that I'm sure I could cover with that. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to these live broadcasts, even if they happen to not be live for you, if you're watching after the fact. I appreciate it. Thank you for following. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for asking. Thank you for being you. I love you. I appreciate you. And at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. May the Force be with you.